Hey everyone, Charting Man Dan with the chart guys, checking in on the cannabis sector. We finally got a real headline. Yesterday was a very fluffy headline about a bill that's not going to impact these stocks in any way. But today we got information that the Trump pick for the DEA and his confirmation hearing talked about how getting back on track with the process of determining if we're going to go to Schedule 3 is a top priority. And we need to look at the price action that was significant and the dollar volume that resulted from that headline. At the end of this video, I'm going to do a trade review in terms of how I was very actively trading MSOS today, so stick around for that. But the headline, you can look at it multiple ways, right? Trump's pick to lead DEA says marijuana rescheduling review will be one of my first priorities on the job. But another headline, DEA's likely administrator refuses to commit to Schedule 3 proposal for cannabis, which is true as well. It's going to be a top priority to review it. I need to look at the science, yada, yada. As we know, this is going to potentially take some months to shake out. But at least somebody said something about cannabis, which is really all it boils down to at this point. The bulls did have a little momentum already in their favor coming off the low. I talked in a recent video how a lot of that was just max fear capitulation, where we bottomed in the broader market after its tariff fear, and we saw a bunch of crypto altcoins bottoming on the same day as MSOS and having the same bounce that is currently underway in terms of 3 green weeks in a row. So that tells me it's a bit of repositioning, of risk on, coming back on a little bit. But what we do have after today is our first daily uptrend since the election dumpathon. Every single bounce from that point has been a lower high, and the ones that did break the lower highs did not confirm the trend. That is now different. We just had a bounce where every single day was a higher low for 12 days. We topped out. We set a daily higher low at 261. That's now the most important support level on this daily uptrend. And with the headline today, we broke out to a higher high. So the trend is defined by a higher low and a higher high. We are now in a daily uptrend. The volume that we saw today is the highest volume in a year, aside from, well, it's pretty much matching the same day as the top back here. But aside from the election reaction, that was higher volume, but we'll call it the second highest volume day in a year. That's significant as well. So clearly some shorts are covering. We have a very clear resistance level right now. Look at this previous support and resistance. I want to get pretty much 329 to 339 is the level I'm looking at. And you can see it was support. We held it a bunch of times. We rejected from it a couple times, and we rejected from it again today. That's now the most important level that we're battling. We know bigger picture, eventually we will have to confirm a weekly uptrend if this is a longer term bottom. The bulls are loving the fact that it's increasing bull volume. The most important resistance on the weekly chart is all the way up at 383. That's not in play right now. But the bulls are hoping that when we top out and lose the daily uptrend, which is not at risk of happening in the short term, but when that happens, we must confirm the weekly uptrend to follow through and say, yeah, the longer term bottom is shaping up at this point. As far as the short term support, I'm looking at 305. Bulls want to hold 305 tomorrow on Thursday. If we lose it, we'll look at the possibility that we may be seeing some daily consolidation shaping up again. But for me, it's just walking up the most important level every time we set a daily high or low. As far as individual names, what's been going on recently is, of course, Trulieve led the way to the downside on the vote reaction because of the failure in Florida. And then starting about 2 months ago, there was a repositioning where it started to see relative strength and GTBIF started to see relative weakness, in part because MSOS was doing some selling. But again, you just look at TCNNF divided by GTBIF to compare the two. And if this chart's going up, that means Trulieve is gaining. So from early March, gaining relative strength, different today, gave some back. But we can say that over the last 2 months, generally speaking, Trulieve has been gaining and Green Thumb has been weakening a bit. Nothing massive, but that's what's been going on. Looking at their individual charts, GTBIF also has a daily uptrend. Again, the volatility on the OTC, these wicks, these candles, I can't trade it, which is why I trade MSOS. It's not liquid enough for me in my style, but we can look at key levels. Look at all these tops from the way down. Again, same deal. Support, 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 resistance, 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 resistance. 750 to 769. It's more of a range because of the lack of liquidity. You're very unlikely to hit pinpoint levels. It's ranges that we're looking at. 750 to 769 is the most important resistance range on GTBIF to be watching from here. True leave. Look at this resistance. So again, same deal. The gap down open on the election. We bounce off support, reject, reject, reject. And here we are the last 2 days. Look at these tops from the way down. 520, 524, 521. It is not a coincidence that we are struggling at 525. Hit 525 yesterday and pulled back. Hit it today and pulled back. Clearly, that's the most important short-term level. If we clear it and turn that resistance into support, we're then looking up at 609. There's not a whole lot until that level. Again, for everything that we're going to talk about, we must confirm weekly uptrends when this bounce is done. But we still have bounce momentum. And obviously, the more headlines, the better at this point to continue the momentum. And of course, it doesn't hurt that the broader stock market is hitting bounce highs, after hours, bullish reaction to Microsoft and Meta. So why does that matter? Sentiment. Sentiment is continuing to recover. A month ago, we had massive fear. 3 weeks ago, massive fear. And it's been doing nothing but slowly fading away from massive fear over the last 3 weeks, which is the exact time period with which we have been bouncing in this sector. So sentiment always matters in the broader market. And of course, the more we V-shape bounce, the better. CGC in the Canadian side, not really responding to the headline today. We did respond, but we gave it back more significantly. And again, if we were doing the same thing as MSOS on CGC, we'd be trading up, around 180 right now, which obviously is not the case. So Canadian names, TLRY is clearly the weakest with dilution, reverse splits, whatever's going on over there. But Canadian names not really responding much. Cron's got a decent little bounce going. One thing about Cron is at least it's got this support zone. Everything else is free falling at all-time lows. Cron does have this level from 2023 down in the 160s, which yes, we dipped below it very briefly and then popped right back above it. In terms of cannabis names, it's one of the few with a long-term support level to be looking at. HITI is another one that didn't completely fall apart. It held a longer-term support as well down here. So what? We got a daily uptrend. When we lose it, we must confirm a weekly uptrend to continue putting distance between us and the all-time low bottom. We need, these are all still words, right? We're still reacting to words in this sector, which is fine. I'll take it. I'll show you the trading that I did on words with this volatility. But until we get concrete information, for me, it'll always be trading in this sector. When it's words, it's definitely trading. If it's actions, okay, then maybe we can talk about investment. But do something. Do something. That's the main takeaway. But at least we're going up for now. So I'll keep checking in on things because, again, I actively traded MSOS today more so than at any point in the last probably 6 months. So it's definitely back on my radar. And the trend is up in the short term. We just got to work on those longer term trends. All right, so I want to give a little example how I, as a day trader, actively will trade the volatility that we see on news spikes in MSOS. And my approach, generally speaking, considering how beat up we've been, has been that when there is a volume spike, and fortunately I'm usually at the computer when it happens, and we have the chat room, someone's posting real quick about what's going on, but I buy first and ask later, in the sense that I'll market buy when I see the big volume spike. Ideally, we get, a couple percent of follow through at least. I sell half, and then my break even is a good bit lower. And then I go and look at the headline, because the last thing I want to do is be searching for a headline. It's a big deal headline, and by the time I look back, we're now 15% higher than when I could have bought. And that's just because I'm very comfortable with actively trading rapidly. What if I buy and that's the top and it's not a meaningful headline and we then start pulling back? Then I'll stop out with a certain dollar amount risk because there's no support level nearby. I'll stop out if a certain dollar amount threshold has been reached, what I call my day loser level, where I cut it and then I'm done for the day. So I did this yesterday on April 29th on this headline. I buy at, just an example, 293, and I sell half at 299, and now my break even is 287. Then I go and read the headline and say, oh, this headline is meaningless. They're submitting a bill. Okay, that's going to take forever if it's actually going to pass. And the bill is to just give the possibility of the drug czar to say that he might support something. Meaningless headline in terms of stock price action. So I stop out break even, and that's it. Okay, give it back. That's that. Happens again today. Same deal. I buy, I get filled in the 290s. We get a bit of follow through. I sell a little bit. Now I've got a core swing position if it follows through. And this headline is more meaningful than the last one. And so then if I've got a core swing, but I know we're still going to see 5% moves in both directions, I use my skill set actively trading in both directions. So just as an example of that, again, placing a lot of trades today. I'm just doing a little play-by-play in our chat room and on Twitter. So first, I'm in my core long swing position with a break even down in the upper 280s at this point because I sold half into the initial move. So now I'm looking short. And I'm looking short just because, okay, I've got long covered and I'm not going to sell my longs. I'm trying to swing them into at least tomorrow. So I then try for a short. And so I short at 324 and I cover half real quick. And that then gives my break even at 327.5. And then I cover the second half down at 311. Okay, I just made some gains on a short. So that now, in my brain, I could then take those gains and subtract it even further from my swing attempt cost basis. And then say, all right, I've made this much on MSOS day trading today. This is what my break even on today's trading would be on this long position. So got that short. Then I recognized a hidden bid. What's a hidden bid? It's an iceberg order, Google iceberg orders. But it's essentially, I saw the bid being hit at 309, sold into, wasn't moving. That means there's hidden bid support there. So I jumped in on that and said, all right, I'm going to add more long at 309. I sell half at 315. So now what's my break even? My break even is, we'll say 305. It's a little bit lower than that. So now I put a stop loss at 305, break even, no risk on an aggressive added position. We get more follow through. We head up to 329 resistance. I sell the other half. All right. My aggressive add just locked in more gains, still sitting on the swing position, trying to swing it. All right. Things are going well. We get another leg up. Okay, great. I recognize there's a lot of resistance in the 330s. Look at all this action from the way down. We bounced off of it. Support, resistance. And now we're back testing the 330s. I'm looking for a short again. Again, I'm not going to sell my swing here, but we can easily pull back 5% in just even healthy consolidation at this point. So I look short again. I know the resistance zone I'm playing around in. This is missing one order. I made an initial short at 330.05 and then a second one at 336.5. So now my break even is 335 on the short. I'm playing off of 339 resistance. I'll stop out if 340 breaks for a small loss on this short attempt. That means my swing is continuing to gain. We then pull back a little bit. I sell 20% to get comfortable. Okay, now I sell 20% real quick at 332.4. So now my break even's closer to the high of the day at this point. Maybe it's 337 or whatever. I sell another 20% at 321. I sell another 20% at 318. I sell another 20%. We'll call it 316. So again, just locking in wins on the short so that, my swing position value has dropped at that point 5 to 6%, but my account's not dropping because I'm making money on the short side. So now I'm all out the short. I'm back to only my long swing position. And at this point, from an initial entry where I'm in the 290s, because of this trading, if you factor in the win on the aggressive long, the 2 wins on the shorts, I mean, my break even on this swing position in terms of gains on the day is now under the low of the day. And so that then puts me in complete control of this trade where I can just stick a break even stop. I need to do math, but let's just say 270 break even stop and try and let this play out for days or weeks or whatever I want. But obviously, this requires a ton of experience to be able to maneuver this quickly, but just wanted to give some insight into how a professional trader will approach things, and also the reason why MSOS volume dwarfs everything else. You know, I've now putting up 6 figures of dollar volume buying and selling, and I haven't opened up one of the charts on the individual names at any point today, just because it's not the slippage, the liquidity, the ability to use stop losses. MSOS is the only game in town for me trading this sector actively. Feel free to ask any questions.